Hey, welcome back. Today's question comes from Selvmordspilot. Hello, it seems that the current society is basing the promotion of material attachment on scarcity. Since we are most attached to that which is scarce, do you think that this attachment could also be overcome by creating abundance? No. Um, First of all, I would say we're not most attached to that which is scarce. Our attachment becomes most evident when things are scarce. When the things that we're attached to are present, we don't notice the attachment because it leads to pleasure and to happiness. This is the curious thing about human beings. When you don't get what you want, you immediately are aware of your attachment and are aware of the situation. You remember it, and as a result, we build up in our minds ideas that we never get what we want, or when you want something, it never comes, and we think, oh, I want this, and then we don't get it, and we think, okay, I'm jinxing myself, or so on, and we get these ideas of when you pay attention to something, you jinx yourself, or so on, and so we get this idea of coincidence, because when we do get what we want, we don't notice it, and we don't realize that that we were lucky. We get these ideas of having bad luck or so on from our bad experiences, and we easily remember them. And as a result, we might think that we're only attached to those things that we can't get. And when we get things, there's no attachment. In fact, there is a growth in attachment. Similarly to a drug addict, when they get the drug, it increases the addiction in the mind and in the brain. When they don't get the drug, on the other hand, it's actually less of an addiction. So in that sense, scarcity is actually building up resistance to the addiction. When you don't get what you want, you have to deal with the addiction. You have to deal with the suffering that comes from not getting what you want. And in that sense, it builds character and it builds resistance to the addiction. I would say actually contrary to the idea that scarcity leads to addiction. I would say abundance leads to addiction, and in fact that's really what's happened in this world. We live in a planet which is abundant, which has a abundance of natural resources, and as a result that leads to greed and to laziness. And as we become lazy, we are unable to sustain a standard practice of distribution, and we all want an easier way to get the things that that we like. We become more and more attached to them, and we need them here, and we need them now. So instead of having ordinary food, then we need special food, or we need to have summer foods in the winter foods in the summer, whatever, and we need to have more and more exotic foods. The reason for this being that the addiction cycle is one of diminished returns. When you get what you want, there's a stimulus that arises in the brain, and these chemicals are received by the receptors. When that sequence occurs, the receptors are weakened, and the stimulus is weakened, and as a result, the next time you get what you want, if you get the same level, it's not as enjoyable. So you need more. At the time when we're always getting what we want, we're actually increasing our desire for the object. We need a higher amount of stimulus, and a more immediate, a more sustained, or a quicker fix, quicker high, for the same amount of pleasure. And so we can't sustain that. The only thing we could possibly sustain is, the only state of happiness that could possibly be sustained is the giving up of desire. And I think scarcity helps us to do that. When we remove ourselves from the object of our desire, then we're able to see the attachment clearly and see it for what it is. So I would say, I know there's this idea going around that all it would take is abundance, and I think that comes from the fact that we can see in the world that there is an abundance. There really is enough food to feed everybody, for example. But the reason it's not that way is because of the attachment to things that are abundant. When you can get things, you become attached to them. You don't want to share them with other people, and you cling more and more and more and more, and it isn't sustainable. And that's why we see war and conflict and revolution and so on. Why the world is not able to live in peace, happiness, and harmony. Okay, so that's my answer. Thanks for the question.